Some people call a sermon a Devar Torah. Sometimes during davening, it's called a Devar Tefillah. But this short speech is going to be called a Devar Mitzvah, meaning a word of mitzvah. And that's because I want to focus on a mitzvah, and we can focus on many mitzvot, of course, 613 in the Torah. But I think I want to focus on a mitzvah that I believe actually should be reclaimed. Often we talk about mitzvot that, they're not relevant anymore, so we don't have to do them. Let's skip over them. But now in a day of reclaiming ritual, which in fact is happening throughout the Jewish world, one instance over, I would say, the last decade or so is mikvah, for instance, right? Mikvah sort of disappeared a little, but now mikvah is coming back, not just for conversion, not just before weddings, but the mikveh at the American Jewish University. Raise your hand if you've been to the mikveh at American Jewish University before. If you haven't, you should definitely take a tour. Actually, we're going this week with our Introduction to Judaism class. And the idea of mikveh is becoming reclaimed, not just because it is an old ritual, but because it has meaning today. And one of those mitzvot that I briefly mentioned before the Torah reading was this mitzvah of bikurim, which is God asking us to give the first fruits to the temple. And it happens on Shavuot. Now, the reason why I say it's not relevant today is because the mitzvah of bikurim is only applicable in the land of Israel. And not only is it applicable in the land of Israel, but the temple has to be standing. So it's something today that we simply read, and we don't do. But bikurim is, I believe, a ritual that can be reclaimed. I remember when I was at Shomrei Torah for 5 years, and the kids in the preschool were learning about Shavuot. Not only would we dress up as Moses and come down the hill in the back of the synagogue, but we would also have the kids bring a basket of fruit to school. And they would walk into the sanctuary and put it on the bima, reenacting the words of what we find in our Torah this morning. But when you think about the act of bikurim, of first fruits, I read a beautiful commentary of what it means for the Jews who were wandering in the desert, but also what it means for the people who are already in the land of Israel. I want to talk just a moment for what it meant back then, but also what it can mean on our journey today. Let's talk about historically. The mitzvah of bikurim was given when the Torah was given at Mount Sinai, Shavuot, and it was talking about when you got to the land of Israel, when you got to that land, when you arrived in that land, then you would take the first fruits and bring them to the temple. And it's a two-way street. The rabbis explain that when you have this mitzvah of bikurim, the first fruits, the Israelites got it when they didn't even have a land. So this mitzvah was about imagining what it would mean to be attached to a land and to have that opportunity to give the mitzvot, to give these bikurim. And at the same time, this mitzvah is about when you are in the land, remembering the time when you were in the wilderness as well. Let me repeat that. This mitzvah of bikurim, of bringing first fruits to the temple, is both to imagine the journey ahead of the promised land, when you are in the land, that one day you will be able to do this, but also when you're in the land, it's a reminder that this was given when we were in the wilderness. And each one of us is either here or there or in between. We're never at the place where we're going to get to. But we're always either on the journey, looking back, looking forward, or sort of in that middle space. Bikurim is attached to the holiday of Shavuot, but we really know about bikurim from the holiday of Passover. It's often the part that most seders skip over because it's simply words. But when we read the Magid section in the Seder, we say, Ha'arami ha'oved of Avi, that my father was a wandering Aramaean. Most people know that part. But the part that comes next is a declaration of what we say when we bring the first fruits. Ve'anita ve'amarta, that God, you will answer us. And so this simple sentence that we just read from our second Torah scroll this morning, that Jay read, Uvayom habikurim, that Shavuot is a festival of first fruits. It's not just picking off the first lemon as they begin to bloom off your tree. But when you pick that first lemon and when you see that tree bloom for the first time again, right? Not for the first time, but again and again, you realize it's something much greater. It's the blessings that we hope will be, and it's the blessings that we have been gifted. And I know it's sometimes very difficult to see the blessings in a world that perhaps is often filled with, I don't want to say curses, but unblessing. You simply have to turn on Yahoo or any news source or any newspaper and see the front page. But this is a reminder. Chag HaBikurim. There are times when those first fruits are in front of our eyes. It doesn't discount the bad that is happening, but it allows us to at least take that fruit, give it to God. And when we give it to God, we pray that that blessing also extends to each other. A Chag Bikurim Sameach, a happy festival of first fruits. We will continue with our Musaf service, page 342. We rise, Chatzi Kaddish, followed by the Amidah.